Of the many predictions that are thrown into our global fleet ecosystem, smart mobility as an alternative to the car might be the most radical one. It confuses fleet customers and suppliers alike, making it hard to prepare for change. For sure, the vehicle, the company car, will not disappear. In the current state, and even if we spend too much time in traffic jams and have trouble finding a parking spot, nothing beats the experience of having unlimited access to your own vehicle. But we are gradually learning to question our received wisdom of mass car ownership as the answer to all mobility needs across the globe. And although often challenged, the transition from ownership to usership is inevitable and fits the trend towards cyclic economies like a glove. The translation of this transition into the corporate fleet ecosystem is smart mobility, and it has made it to the top of the corporate agenda. Welcome to the session How to Make Your Global Strategy Future-Proof with Corporate Mobility. And to discuss this topic, let's welcome the International Smart Mobility Manager of the Year, Pim de Weert of Philips, Julia Lapenkova, Global Senior Procurement Manager at Danone, and Adriano Negrao, Vice President Logistics at AB InBev. Hello to all three of you. To set the scene, can you first tell us how big your global fleet is and how many employees your company has? And I would like to start with Julia.
Yes, hello, Steven, and pleasure to be here. I'm working in Danone, as you just mentioned. Danone is quite a big corporate company spread across the globe. We have around 1,100 employees, and we have the fleet of 13,500 cars. 30% of those are with benefit cars, the rest is with tool cars.
Okay. Adriano, you are working for AB InBev, a huge company. How many vehicles does AB InBev have across the globe and how many employees?
I'm actually at Middle Americas, right, and in charge of logistics. So if you take a look at logistics for AB InBev, we are as well a global company. We are more or less 10,000 tier 1 trucks, as we call long haul trucks, and another 20,000 of the delivery trucks. Here in Middle Americas, that's what I'm in charge. We have around 3.5 of those tier 1 trucks and around 7,000 of those tier 2 trucks. In our region, we are more or less 19 employees in logistics. There are ABI, and if you add the third parties, the contractors, it goes up to 34,000 people in logistics.
Okay, good. Pim, you are the Global Mobility Manager at Philips. You were also awarded the Mobility Manager of the Year award. How many cars do you manage at the moment and how many employees do you have at Philips?
Well, I manage 12,000 cars across the globe, and we have a workforce of 80,000 people across the globe.
Okay. Adriano, would like to continue with you. You mentioned yourself that you have a logistics role. You also already indicated you have trucks, etc. Do you have other mobility solutions in place already today than vehicles?
Yeah, so I think one important to highlight is that we export Corona, one of our global brands, to more than 180 countries. So we use lots of ocean freight. We also have some railways and some river freight as well. And in the past year, especially after the pandemic hit in our countries, we then started to develop alternative ways to get to the market, optimizing using some of the fleet that we have from our customers. So we started allowing our customers to pick up product in our DCs. So that way we started then optimizing their fleet as part of our, let's say, our ecosystem, and that gave us lots of flexibility.
Okay, good. Pim, why do you and your company Philips want to go to mobility?
We want to move to more flexible solutions for our employees. We also want to move to zero mobility, so meaning electric cars, electric scooters, electric bikes, and we want to manage mobility, ground transportation more efficient. That's our main motivation.
What kind of solutions do you already have in place next to the traditional company car?
Next to company cars, we offer, we have ride-hailing, car sharing, but also bike schemes, and of course, public transport and shuttle services.
And are those schemes in place in specific regions and specific countries, or is it already internationally deployed?
No, mobility is really still really a local approach, Stephen. So bike schemes is typically Dutch, but for example, a ride-hailing platform is where China, where we first introduced it, because there the majority goes by taxi and by ride-hailing, and we don't have hardly have any company cars there.
Julia, what is the stake of Danone on corporate mobility?
To be honest, it's not much. So leasing a car and, let's put it that way, having a car is the most traditional and, let's put it that way, also old-fashioned way, and people stick to it. However, in some of the countries, we started already our transformation to mobility. There are not so many countries doing so. So we have biking, we have first of all, we have a lot of pooling, car sharing, mobility on demand is already there, right? But when it comes to the mobility as a service, then we have biking. We also have short-term rental cars, which is also part of the mobility as a service. Netherlands, Belgium, partially in France, we also started using those business cards for public transportation, but it doesn't go so well, and especially with Corona.
Okay. Adriano, we are talking here about moving from fleet management to mobility management. In your opinion, what are the challenges that you encounter when trying to evolve from fleet to mobility management? What are the obstacles that you see?
Yeah, so thank you for the question. I think first, that is usually an initial investment, and I'm bringing the view on the load, right? I mean, the goods transportation. That is usually an initial investment, right? That you need to make it happen. We are investing a lot on electric trucks. We're trying to, we have an external commitment to reduce our carbon footprint by 25% by 2025. That's an external commitment as a company that we did. So that is this initial investment. We need to find a solution, right, in terms of load transportation, right? So I mean, events, small trucks. I mean, it's a more common solution. We are piloting in many different countries. So we have Colombia, 22 trucks as we speak that we are piloting. And then there is lots to learn, right? Not only in terms of cost of the investment, but also in terms of the autonomy of the truck, how to run those trucks in different environments, different cities. So we're facing lots of challenges there. And the other one is the data connectivity, right? To be able to manage the fleet in a more centralized way within different technologies in different countries. We have a very important initiative in our region here, which is to have a control tower centralizing that information, then connecting all the fleet and all the different ways to get to the market, to then manage in a more centralized way. I think those are the big challenges that we've been facing lately.
If we are talking about the region where you are responsible for in the Americas, do you think that the infrastructure is already there, or is it emerging? Is it evolving when it comes to electric mobility or shared mobility or micro mobility?
Well, I would say it's still emerging. We are partnering with a company here in Mexico, to give an example, And we are now developing a local solution for an electric truck. All the electric trucks that we are piloting today, we brought from China with, local vendors that brought the technology, but we are now working on a local provider in Mexico to then develop technology. It's something that is still evolving. Hopefully, we're going to have a prototype in the next 6 to 10 months. But yes, this is still a challenge.
Julia, I have the impression that you would like to go a little bit faster with the transformation from fleet to mobility. What are the challenges that you encounter?
Well, that's true. So that's why actually we revised our global car policy, and that's why we also set our targets of CO2 emissions. We're also committed to reduce our CO2 emissions by 2025. So this is the first, let's put it that way, just the first milestone where we want to have it reduced. And mobility is one of the means how we want to do this. So that's why, of course, we encourage countries to go so. But when I look at different countries, the maturity level is completely different. So Kim already mentioned that it's a very local solution, and I can tell you that it's even in Europe, there are not enough local solutions, and the infrastructure of the city is not yet there to make people really use it to the fullest, because people, and this is the second challenge, they also have different needs. So a single person living in a big city has one need, and a family with 4 children with grandparents living together with them have completely different needs, and maybe mobility is not the best solution for them. So I think that perception of people, different needs, and of course maturity level of different countries.
Pim, when did you start your mobility journey?
In 2017, to be exact.
Okay, and how did you start? Where did you start? What was the first thing that you did?
Well, and that's also the biggest challenge. Well, first you start with data analysis to really, because you really need to understand what is your current mobility behavior. But then I started to pitch this towards my different stakeholders, and that's the biggest challenge to really make sure they're all on board, because they are in there for different interests. So you have HR, finance, sustainability, and that was that took quite some time. You really need to invest in making sure that everybody is aligned on the strategy and on the main objectives. Then you have your framework in place, and then you can start to deploy new initiatives and step by step evolve from fleet to mobility management.
If you look now a little bit at the regions that you manage, you have a strong mandate to look for mobility solutions also across those regions. How would you classify the regions in terms of mobility maturity, the possibilities around mobility?
Yeah, again, it's really still local, but every region has their own opportunities. As I just mentioned, China, there we have a ride-hailing platform in place where we already have 3,000 employees on that platform. In the Netherlands, we have a mix of solutions in place, like the bike scheme, like ride-hailing, car sharing, and so we are making progress in all regions, but if I really need to classify, I think the Netherlands is really a front runner where the whole mix is available, where we have electric cars, where we have all the different solutions in place for now.
Julia, do you think that when you go from fleet to mobility, that the exercise and the outcome needs to be CO2 and TCO neutral, or can it also be an investment?
Well, in terms of CO2 emissions, it should definitely bring an improvement, just because you use different means of transportation and you do not stick only to the car and also petrol and diesel, right? But when it comes to the cost, I think it should be a very fine balance between the TCO and CO2 emissions, because anyways you need to pay money, right? Because you just buy something. But then with these mobility solutions, you're not only aware what you're using and how you're using, but you also use the best solution which fits to your needs here and now. it makes you very flexible. So you pay money, and I think at the beginning it should be an investment, because you also, again, you need to analyze the data, you need to have a lot of consultancy, you need to develop all the mobility budget, and you also need to get on board people in that journey. So it should be an investment, also maybe giving a little bit more flexibility to all the employees, not all the employees eligible for the car. But yeah, this is a very good return of investment in the future. That's what I think.
Okay. Adriano, same question for you. Assuming that AB InBev is going forward with mobility, is trying to seek innovative mobility solutions for employees, for the drivers. We are now living, of course, in particular times where cost efficiency can perhaps be even more important than it was last year and the year before. Do you think that innovation in mobility can cost money?
Well, I mean, we are investing on that, right? But to be 100% honest, we still don't have all the answers. So that's why we are piloting so many different places. So yes, we need to put money behind. An investment there. We have those 22 countries, 22 electric trucks in Colombia. We have another 20 events across different countries. We have a plan to have at least one electric truck in the 6 major countries of our region by the end of the year, another 300 trucks in the next 3 years that are going to be electric. So, I mean, we are putting money behind. We still don't have all the answers. We are learning, I mean, cost, maintainment, autonomy, operational needs that we might need. So there are lots of open questions. Again, the technology for the small trucks are quite, I mean, common today. But then to the big trucks, that's where we have the biggest gap. We're still learning and developing. We are partnering with different vendors there to find a solution. There are lots of commitments, lots of plans, and hopefully we're going to find a solution that balances, right? I mean, that we can build a very strong agenda on the better world, on the environment, and then to balance with a solution that is operational, that makes sense, right? So that's what we are working on.
Okay. Pim, we talked already about how important it is to convince your management, to convince your stakeholders. Now, of course, in many countries, the company car is also an emotional benefit. How did you go in selecting the mobility modes for the right profiles, and how did you convince the drivers and the employees?
I don't see really that it's either mobility or a car. It can go hand in hand, Stephen. So we do indeed do an analysis on the personas, who is fit for a mobility, multimodal mobility offering, or is really a need for a company car. But there's also, for some, it will be a mix where they need to have a company car, but sometimes it's better to use public transport or different modes than the company car.
Okay. Julia, what do you expect from the suppliers to support your future mobility strategy?
I would say more flexibility, definitely. And by flexibility, I mean to understand better particular needs of this particular company. When I talk to different suppliers, of course, they have already ready-made solutions, but when I try to promote the solution to the countries, or when I'm giving that opportunity to them, hey, consider this or that, there is always a lot of questions coming from the countries. And can we do this? And can we do that? And can we connect it with our internal systems? And can it be a little bit more flexible, etc.? So this is a solution of flexibility and should also be flexible. But on top of that, of course, a lot of expertise and a lot of consulting, because we don't know. Again, we don't have those answers. We don't know what is the best fit for us. So let's do it together.
Adriano, what would be your recommendation for the supplier industry in making your life a little bit easier when it comes to mobility?
Well, I mean, adding to that question, I think it's we've been working side by side with our providers. to find that solution. So, I mean, we are always inviting them to bring disruptive ideas, an idea that fit our business. So that's the biggest challenge. We did an innovation day. We invited many of our suppliers to join this last February. It was really nice to see. We received more than 100 ideas. We've selected 3, and we are then working with them to make it happen. So, I mean, it was really nice to see ideas coming from the ecosystem to add to that agenda to help us with those solutions. So, I mean, the more we get those disruptive ideas that fits to the system, to our need, the better. I mean, we're open and willing to join and forces and then to build that.
And for you, Pim, what would be your main lesson to the suppliers? Because you have already some experience.
Well, I think a prerequisite for them is that they are fully digitized. I mean, we really need digital solutions like a platform. We need telematics. We need applications or something like a digital mobility system. But if they cannot meet those digital requirements, then they cannot be successful in the new mobility ecosystem.
A final question for you, Pim. Is there an argument for a fleet manager not to start with mobility today or thinking about mobility?
Well, yeah. If they really have only road warriors 24/7 on the road, then maybe it's a different mindset, and there's not an opportunity for mobility. But I think next to your company car drivers, you should also think about the rest of your workforce, and that's where you can bring value to introduce mobility.
Julia, Adriano and Pim, we need to close the session here. Thank you very much for your time and your insights.